Welcome back to the Yes By podcast, everyone. Newfoundland's #1 podcast. I'm your host, Robert Greeley, and today we have Brent Mac Events for you. We talk about everything from organizing the Jib Fest weekender, and managing guys like Mike Lynch as well, who's obviously a well-known comedian here in Newfoundland. So we've got that whole conversation for you. We're just going to jump right into it today. This is the Yes By podcast, Newfoundland's #1 podcast. I'm your host, Robert Greeley. Enjoy. Brent, welcome to the Yes By podcast, man. It's nice to have you here.
Hey, yeah, thanks, buddy. It's good to be here.
Now,
I guess, yeah.
yeah, I know. Hey, with alert level 5, nice to have you in the virtual office.
Exactly.
Man, that must be difficult for you with your line of work, obviously, Brent Mac Events.
Yeah, I mean, I remember back in March last year when it started, it kind of said it's a tough business to be in when you're in the business of gathering people, So, but yeah, I mean, we did get a few events done this year and tried our best to navigate through it all. But yeah, it's just taking it all in stride.
No, I feel the same way. I mean, sports is very similar, right? You want people to gather. And I mean, even when you look within a team, it was so funny because for years working football, if somebody had the common cold, like just like the sniffles during the winter season, we'd all have the sniffles because people are sharing water bottles and things of that nature. And you're just so in close proximity all the time, right? It's no surprise that we've kind of seen the impact with it, especially in sport.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
So now before we get into like the business side of everything, I'm kind of curious. I want to know where it all started for you. So, just tell me about your childhood and growing up.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I grew up St. John's, kind of like, pretty active, playing a lot of sports growing up. Wasn't necessarily good at many, but I played a lot. Just sort of doing everything. I guess, yeah, just playing a lot of sports. Grew up in St. John's. I mean, pretty much, I've gotten to travel a fair bit through work and leisure and stuff. I've been pretty fortunate with that stuff. So, but yeah, pretty much always lived here. So, yeah.
Now, for Baymans, it's a big thing where we kind of chirp the townies a lot. In terms of growing up in town, are you guys as intense in that whole argument as we are?
It's funny. My girlfriend right now is from Pasadena, and she doesn't consider that the Bay, but we're like my other roommate Pittman. He grew up in town as well, and we're just like town Bay, right? But sorry, what was the question again? Like, are they like as intense or?
Yeah, are you as intense with the Townie Bayman debate as I find Bayman are as intense with the Bayman Townie event? Like I find Bayman never want to be associated with town, and Townies always are almost off on their own, maybe even unbothered by it all.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, like, I'm not the most like handy person, for example. So I actually won some power tools over Christmas, which was a sweet thing to win. I started to try and use a few. My buddies was like chirping me, like, "You're talented, you don't know how to use them," and like, "Let me show you how it's done." Stuff. It's all in good fun, but yeah, like, definitely when it comes to certain things like that, you can see the divide there. Like, you don't know where you're at. Get that to me, So yeah, and I'm like, "Aha! All right, you can chop everything up for me. I don't care." Like,
I had an interesting dynamic growing up in Claremont because I was born in town. I mean, my parents moved when I was like 2.5 years old. But being away for so long as I did, everybody would ask me where I'm from. And it's funny, for the most part, we're the only province where people, if people are from Ontario, they say they're from the specific city, but we say the whole province, right? I'm like, I'm from Newfoundland. And then some people are confident being like, oh, okay, like what part of Newfoundland are you from, right? So they, for the most part, that translates to they're hoping that you say St. John so they can be like, oh, I know where that's to. So I always, after saying Claremont for so many times and people being like, what? Like, oh, okay, like where's that? Or how close is that to St. John's? I just go, I go with, I was born in town, but I grew up in Claremont, right? So then they kind of get that correlation a little bit more.
Exactly. Yeah. Depending on where you are in the world, it's kind of like how far away, how big you start. Sometimes like I'm from Canada, that could be enough. People that's enough people at the time. Okay, Newfoundland, go further. Okay, St. John's, wherever, right? But so you grew up, you were born in St. John's. You moved to Claremont when you were 2. So how long?
Yeah, like 2.5.
Right. Until how long were you in Claremont for?
Like my whole life. My parents are still there. So my whole life until I graduated high school, did a year at College of North Atlantic out there.
Yeah.
Went to U Ottawa, spent the last 4 years and a bit up there. Cool. and I was up there doing my master's,
Yeah.
like Ryerson, things were online and stuff like that. And then I came home, and this is the first time that I'm living in Bay Roberts now. So this is the first time
Nice.
I've
Yeah.
like lived in the island in 4 years, and also like lived outside of Claremont, right? So it's a
Cool.
little weird and whatnot. It's weird going from like a bay town to a bay town, I will say.
A different Bay. Yeah. It's funny. Bay Roberts was like the last place I was in before everything kind of shut down. Actually, it was funny. So the last two places I was in before things shut down like 2 weeks ago was Bay Roberts and Clarenville. So funny enough, yeah, we were there for did some shows with Mike Lynch, and it was actually we were in Harbor Grace, but we had an Airbnb in Bay Roberts, and then the next night we were in Clarenville for 2 nights, and we had 3 sold out shows. Then we came to St. John's for 4 shows, and then it was now the whole tour is on pause. We'll see what the next 15, but yeah. So that was the last 2 places I was.
It's crazy, eh? Like when you're in this fast-paced moving industries and stuff like that, you almost the time that you get to take a break and reflect is essentially when things like this happen, and you're just like, oh wow, hey, like yeah, for myself, I was in Halifax getting ready for a national tournament with the men's hockey team, and now
Nice.
even like while I was here, it was like, you know, the last things we were doing were trying to get productions on the go and different videos, right? And then it all kind of comes to a standstill, and it's just like, oh wow, like I was doing some pretty cool things like literally 2 days ago.
It's crazy. I mean, like you're moving again. It happened so quick, right? We were, Mike. Actually, I have a work term student now working for me, and so like part of his work term, he was going on tour with Mike Lynch and another comedian Paul Warford, sort of like as a tour manager, and they were in Grand Falls. They were about to start off 2 shows, and like 3 hours before the show, news comes out, and it was just like kind of shutting everything down. That was actually technically the day before things shut down across the province, but we just ourselves shut down a day early because we knew it was kind of like the right thing to do. So, but yeah, like I call the venue. It's 5 o'clock. Like ready to go. Lights are there, sounds there. Like we're all ready to go. It's like yeah, we just that's all you can do. It happens that quick, right? So
No, for
yeah.
sure.
So are you still? Have you finished up at Ryerson? Or are you still finishing that online?
I'm still doing that online. So that was something new that I started, right? I started that,
Yeah.
and so I graduated from U Ottawa 2020 of April, I guess. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I went back home to finish out the last few weeks of the semester because
Hmm.
the university flew us back to Ottawa.
Oh,
But for
cool.
myself, I was just like, I was actually supposed to speak on a panel with Ian Mendez. He was at TSN at the time. He's now moved on to the Athletic. He hosted the TSN 1200 radio
Okay.
show
Yeah.
in Ottawa. So me and him were going to talk on a panel together for a bunch of like students for sport business. I was scheduled
Cool.
to photograph some events and things of that, and then the Ian Mendes thing got canceled. Then the events got canceled, and then like it's all sort of started trickling. And it was just like, okay, you know what? Where's the best place to go during a pandemic? An island. That's home
Yeah.
for me. Let's go home and have a 2 week vacation, more or less. I'm doing air quotes for the people on listening
Yeah.
to the audio. I sometimes
Yeah.
forget that people don't see us visually, but I was like, yeah, let's go home for kind of wait it out, and it'll be safer. And then 2 weeks turned into 2 months, and 2 months turned into the whole summer. And it was weird because I left Ontario without really saying goodbye. So you still kind of want it to get back, and I still miss it to this day. But being able to get back and accepted into Ryerson, pick up my own company a little bit more while I was there, and then as Ottawa turned into a hot spot and it looked like things were getting
Yeah.
a little bit worse, and then the opportunity that which I'm so grateful for to come home and work full time for a network out here, especially like in this climate. I was like, yeah, like it just kind of makes sense, right?
Amazing.
So
Yeah.
and it was nice to be able to then at least kind of get that official goodbye. I mean, obviously with
Hmm.
the way that the climate is up there, I couldn't have say a big old goodbye party or
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It was just see a couple of the buddies and say, hey, like see you later, guys. Like who knows when we'll all get back, right? But so yeah, that all unfolded like that. And I just people were asking me, oh, like, are you gonna drop the program now? And it was just kind of like no, like there's no need to. I mean, it's a 12-month intensive program, so like at that
Yeah.
point I was already like 3 months into it. So I'm like, that's 25% of the course, right? And,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
the way they do it is they have this semester is like the first semester is 5 courses, next semester is 3 courses, and then my summer like this coming summer is all research based for me. So I
Hmm.
partnered with a Ottawa company marketing company. They work with athletes and brand partnerships. So that's we're going to be seeing and allocating how different strategies not only impact like analytics and brand partnership, but also internally, how does the athlete kind of feel about like their social platforms, more or less.
Cool.
So it was just kind of like, yeah, we've got all that in the works. Like there's no need. And so the 5 courses, and then it's 3 courses this semester, one of which, I got approved for directed studies. So that's on my own time. A second course I got approved, which is another placement kind of thing, which is all on my own time. And then the third one is just a collaborative workshop, which helps build us into that research.
Yeah, sounds like a good program. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you can, that's a good thing about right now. I mean, everyone's kind of working from home. So, I mean, and doing school from home, whatever, So if you can make it work and do it, yeah. Like, I mean, a year is nothing. Like we just been doing this for a year, Like, yeah, stick with it. That's awesome.
Exactly. Now I'm curious in terms of like, that's my education, but your educational background, what kind of student were you like in high school? Well, like what brought you to,
It's funny you mention that because high school is kind of where I didn't officially start like BME in high school, but sort of when I got my first kind of itch of it, I guess. So grade 12 career day, you're probably familiar with those. People come in, talk about different careers. You sign up for 4 or 5 classes throughout the day. People come talk to you. So I had 2 or 3 of those in the morning, random ones. I don't know. I can't remember what they were, but nothing that interests me. So I was getting ready to like just pip off, right? So I was leaving my high school parking lot. I went to Bishop's there, and I was coming out of the parking lot. And as I'm coming out, what am I, 17-year-old kid, there's this Red Bull van coming in. And like, that was kind of like Red Bull was just kind of coming on the scene around then. So to see this big Red Bull van coming into our high school parking lot, like that was pretty cool. So I kind of like stopped, and 2 younger guys hopped out. I ended up becoming like 2 of my good friends to this day, Matt Power and Patty Green. And I was like, what are you guys doing here? And they're like, oh, we're here to give a presentation for career day. Do you know where so-and-so room is? And I was like, 1 second. Wow, I have that course next. It was like a small business entrepreneurship course, or a class they're talking about. So I said, yeah, I'll show you where the course is or the class is. So I went up and they started talking to the class. Basically, what they were doing at the time was, Patty was DJing and Matt was producing events. And they were producing events together. And Patty was also DJing. And Matt was also a Red Bull rep. So they're working in places like the Rock House in St. John's and just like throwing kind of parties. And I remember sitting front row and like taking notes, and I was asking questions, and like I was so into it, and other people probably weren't, but I followed up with them afterwards, got coffee with them, became friends. When I was like 18, 19, I started like just putting up posters for him. Like I couldn't really do anything myself yet at that point. And yeah, that's what really kind of got me into it. Like they sort of like got my foot in the door. My 19th birthday, they introduced me to some of the bar owners downtown, and like I had a 19th birthday at one of the bars downtown. And, I just like right from that moment kind of fell into the events world. So yeah, in high school, I was probably like an average student. I didn't really like, nothing really clicked for me until I remember until that moment. I was kind of like, okay, this could be something. And then around the business, I did a business degree, a commerce degree. My 3rd work term, I did that for myself. Actually, I took on a entrepreneurship work term. And that was kind of like before, like right now you can do entrepreneurship work terms at MUN, and they offer grants, I think, and you can get up to $5,000 to start a project. But this was like way before that. So, I mean, we didn't have any money or nothing like that. It was just to start a project. And the project was a music festival actually in your hometown in Clarenville. So we started Random Sound, which we ran for 3 years, music festival out there. And yeah, so I mean, that's kind of my education into work terms into the company. Yeah.
What do you think would have happened if that Red Bull van, if Marcus and the guys were 10 minutes late that day and you had got to skip off? Where do you think your life would be?
I mentioned to Patty one day about that. Like, it's so funny how life and universe works. But he's like, man, you would have found it some other way, which I think, I think you might have still got there, but who knows, right? It's like the butterfly effect. You can't think about that too deep. It'll trip you out too hard. But yeah, I mean, it would have been interesting to see. So fast forward, say maybe a year and a half, I'm at Oshiaga, Montreal. First time going away, my buddy's on like a bigger trip. We're all 19. I see this guy Shad, Juno winner hip hop artist out of Ontario, and big fan of him at the time. And I went and saw him, and I remember just being like, that was amazing. That was so cool. He got to come to Newfoundland. And I knew a couple other people doing shows at the time. So I hit them up, said, you should bring in Chad. And they're all like, no, it's not worth it. Too risky. Doesn't make sense. But in my head, it was just, bring him in. it's cheaper than going to see him. Like that's the only way I could compute it. It wasn't like business for me. It was like, I want to see him. My friends want to see him. It'll be awesome, you know? And then from that's how I looked at the deal, which, you know, from a business perspective doesn't really make sense. But at the time, I was thinking purely from a fan. And yeah, I mean, I would love to find that email how I first wrote them. Like, wrote with their agent. I'm sure it was like hilarious. Like, hey, come to Newfoundland, we best con. Like, it's probably so unprofessional. But through the jigs and the reels, it worked out. And first show I ever did, like a bigger show like that with, you know, with agents and stuff like that. And yeah, it was the start of it a lot. Yeah.
So when you're at Memorial, are you like, because it was interesting, and you know, there's so much debate with the value of, say, a university degree now, especially in today's age. I mean,
100%.
I personally am somebody who enjoys the, you know, being in the classroom a lot and having those discussions. And I think it's important more so for maybe the networking than the piece of paper, because while I was at U
Absolutely.
Ottawa, you know, that's where I lived on a res floor with football players. And that was how I ended up getting into the career path of being, you know, communication specialist for like football teams. And then, you know, we have guys who graduate who go on to the CFL. And then, you know, that introduces me to Ottawa Sports and Entertainment Group, which, you know, runs the Red Blacks, runs the 67. So it's that whole like domino effect. So sometimes, you know, my academics, I would say I put on the side in the sense of, okay, yeah, no, I'm not going to study for this midterm tomorrow. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening to this.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go, you know, shoot this 67s gamer and so on, and kind of work on my craft and that thing. And ultimately, I found for myself, while I'm learning in the classroom and I'm listening, I'm also applying a lot of the strategies technically right away in those different environments. So then when I come back for the midterm, I'm able to kind of manage and surprise. Were you in the similar kind of standpoint, or was there one or the other that you kind of weighed heavily on?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head about it's more about meeting the people, the networking. That's really what it's about. It's about finding maybe more so what you don't like, where you do have that little interest. And then it's, you know, it's about knocking on every door you can get, right? Taking every opportunity, like trying different courses because you might meet new people. Like I have some amazing friends and business partners now that I've met through university, or even people that like I maybe might not have talked to for 2 or 3 years after university, but then you meet them out one time and like, oh, it's like you never left, you know. So it's definitely more so about the environment and meeting those people than what you actually learn. Because I mean, like I don't know. I mean, sure, it's good structure. They have good programs and everything, but like really, I mean, you can learn a lot of stuff on yourself, right? It's more so about, yeah, it's just the people you meet. We
YouTube University. It's
oh,
a
big time. But it did give you a good like base understanding. I look back at it now, even trying to catch up on some tax stuff, and I did a couple of tax courses. I'm like, man, I kind of understand that, but let's YouTube some refreshers. Okay, there we go. Right, then I'll talk to my accountant who does it day in day out, and he's like, well, here's how you do it. You know, just getting a bit of general understanding of the more things the better, really. But um, absolutely, no, it's all about the people you meet. I think that's the biggest thing I got at university.
So for your event company, what was that first moment where you were like, I got something here?
I remember so one of the first events I did at the Rock House. I remember, so you know, doors open 10 o'clock. I'm there all day setting up. I go home to get changed. I rush down to get there for 10:01. For some reason, I was thinking it'd be a lot of people, and there was like not a soul around, just me and my buddy and one of the DJs up there. I'm like, this is okay. And like 11 o'clock came, and I remember the bar owner came over to me and said, don't worry about it. It's only early. And I started thinking about like, yeah, you know, it is early. Like, you know, it's pretty early to be downtown, like especially like a club environment. Like, you know, we'll see what happens. And then come around like 11:30, 20 after 11. I remember being out on the deck there at the Rock House, little veranda there. And someone was walking up the street who like, she wasn't like a good friend or anything. Someone I kind of knew. I was like, hey, how's it going? She's like, oh, good. Hey, what's up? And I was like, what are you up to tonight? And she kind of looked at me confused. She's like, I'm coming here. And to me, it was like, just like, it was this moment where I'm like, I know her, but we're not like buddies. I wouldn't call her, text her, but I guess through my advertising promotions, she saw about it, heard about it, was excited about it, and was coming to the event. And it didn't even dawn on me that like you work hard on something they want people to come to, and when they show up, you're like so surprised, like wow, people are actually coming. Like that, for some reason that moment sticks out to me. Like she said to me, like, you know, I'm coming here, as if, what do you mean? What am I doing? I'm here. I was like, oh wow, you're coming. So yeah, that was one moment, I think. Yeah.
I resonate with that so much in the sense of, you put so much content out online, and
Hmm.
even like in productions and whatnot, and then you like go grab a coffee and somebody mentions you like, oh hey man, like I really enjoyed that video, and it's just like, what? And then they're like, oh, the one video you, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, like there are people actually watching this.
That's what you always forget, and it's cool. Like I've done events before where you have like we've had huge, massive events, and like we're very proud of them, of course. But I've had events with a couple of people that I'm equally as happy about because for just different reasons, you know. Maybe something you didn't think was going to work, and it was only a small thing to begin with, but just having those few people, it just means the world, you know. Like, yeah, it's you gotta appreciate it all. So
Now, I'm not 100% sure about what you were doing in those early days for, say, like financial support, because sometimes with like startups and early businesses, it's really hard to, get it to be financially stable right off the bat. Are you taking on other jobs? Are you like bar backing or bartending at other bars or anything like that?
I still to this day work full time with another job, and this has always kind of been something I've grown on the side as well. Kind of growing on both. It's at a good point now where I can balance both. I do have, like I said, it's kind of been cool. I've been able to tap back into the university and hire work term students. So I think I'm on my fifth work term student right now over the last 2.5 years. Just been hiring people every few months. So that's been a really cool process. Now it's kind of like they can more or less handle anything needs to handle during the day. Then I'll jump in evenings and weekends, and that kind of keeps the business going. So yeah, and like when I started off, I tried not to get out of, but I tried to not bite off more than I could chew. With those festivals, Random Sound I mentioned, that did get a little dicey. I mean, I did go into a little bit of debt there. I mean, we lost money every year, and then finally year three, we just had no money left. So that was a bit of debt there that I had to kind of work on. It took me a couple of years to get out of that financially. But then after that, I took that as like a learning opportunity. I said, okay, what did I learn from this? How can I do it better? And that's really what shaped one of the summer events I do now, Best Kind Barbecue. That came from a lot of the mistakes I made at Random Sound. I had partners that I don't deal with anymore. We don't got to get into that, but like now I have a really good partner with that event, and it's like the mistakes I made just financially in other areas too. I was able to learn from that. Now that's why I think the barbecue's been going so well. So yeah, I mean, like I said, we haven't there was a financially a couple of mistakes starting off, but I've tried to just kind of grow it. Anytime you make a little gain, it's just reinvest. So yeah.
With the Random Sound one, what do you think was maybe the biggest cause of some of those mistakes?
A lot of when it comes to what I've learned and what I've researched, this is probably sounding like a lot of common sense, but especially when it comes to a festival, it's branding and consistency. When you think of George Street Fest, what's it now? 40 years. It's the same place, same time every year. So people can plan around it. The regatta, same thing. A lot of towns have their own strawberry festivals, blueberry festivals. All these things are the same time every year, 15, 20 years. The longer you do it, the more consistent they are. The problem with Random Sound is we tried to do it 3 years. It was on 3 different dates in 3 different locations. That's hard to build consistency. I'm going to Random Sound. Where is it this year? When is like people can't, and they weren't necessarily faults of our own. Like it was just that's kind of a whole other long story. Just for for a lot of different reasons, venues getting double booked, these sort of things, right? But yeah, I think and even I did a lot of research again. Osheaga Festival I've been to many times. I've met a lot of great friends up there, and I did some research on them. And I think they were almost 6 years before they broke even. So a lot of the bigger events too, bigger festivals, they can be pretty financially intensive, right? So that's why with the barbecue, we try to start reasonable and small and just see where we can grow it, right? But not jump too big too quick. That's the mistake we made in Random Sound.
Well, I'm sure, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you want to almost establish this nostalgia feeling where people want to keep returning to something because it just automatically brings back so many good memories, right? So sometimes, in order to build like that consistent fan base, you see it with like organizations all the time. You almost want to get to people at, I mean, relatively a young age. So, for sport, it maybe, 5 years old, and now you have
Mhm.
like fond memories of it. But you with events, you almost want, okay, year one to be such a good experience that they want to come back for a second time, and then really hammer home that second time to really solidify that individual as somebody who's just a diehard, wants to continue coming back year after year because every year at this time they just have such good memories of your event.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right there. I think on that note too, I mean, that's where probably our biggest event right now that people might know is Jib Fest. So that's every it would have been our 11th year this year, right? It would have actually been tomorrow. We would have been in Cornbrook right now. But the biggest thing about that is, in year 2, we changed the branding to the Jib Fest Weekender because, well, yes, the events are like what we officially put off in the night times and the snowboard event during the day. It's the whole weekend. It's like people at their hotel rooms, people getting an Airbnb. It's like trying skiing for the first time, or maybe hop on snowboard they haven't done it in years, or getting a beer in the chalet with someone, or it's making the whole weekend. It's drive across the island or down or wherever they're coming from. We looked at, actually, my work term student pulled a bunch of analytics earlier, and we just saw people in the province. Like, I thought it was basically around 25% of people from the East Coast, like St. John's Metro, 25% of people from Cornbrook area. The other 50% are basically all across every nook and cranny of the province, and some from outside. So that's kind of cool. People really do come together for this. And yeah, it's about just that whole experience, the experience of the whole weekend.
Now, when you're throwing off an event, I mean, obviously the safety and health of everybody who attends is your number one priority. But, a lot of times when you mix booze and big parties and crowds, an accident is almost bound to happen. How are you like combating with that in a sense? Like, are you like constantly worried? Because I always, I'm worried with like internally, like if just somebody doesn't like what I do or I end up like screwing up or something like that, right? Like, is that something that, because I mean, for myself, I just continuously worry.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's always a bit of internal worry, but I guess the way around that is just doing your due diligence, doing your homework, cross your T's, dot your I's. Like, it's not like we just come out of nowhere and throw something up, and like, we're professional about it. We're consulting beforehand with, if we got to get a liquor license, which is there's a process for that. Talking with a security company, fencing companies, all the things you kind of think initially, okay, make sure your bar is done correctly, make sure your fence set up correctly, make sure security is there, make sure you have your proper emergency exits, all that stuff. Like, first time around is really overwhelming. When you do it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, you have the right people in place. Now it's almost like a checklist for me. Okay, check. Bob's your uncle, So it's just like anything. The more, first time you hold the camera, you're probably a little nervous and so many buttons, but you look at enough time, like, oh, it's like the back of your hand, right? So there's always going to be new risks and uncertainties when you're moving with different elements. But that's what you just try and just get ahead of. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. Yeah. Cause I mean, for myself, it's something that I just constantly try and work on, right? Is to stop the worrying and just realize like, hey man, like even in my field, like I've been doing this stuff for like 7 years. Right. And it's just like, dude, relax. You're good. You're good at what you do, kind of thing.
Yeah. No, 100%. And the other thing as well, it's not like, it's not like people are in school or something like that. People are coming to your event. Like, no one forced them to buy a ticket and go. Like, people predominantly want to show up and have fun, right? Like, that's something else you kind of take a step back and, like, people work hard. They chose to spend their hard-earned money on this event or this thing you're doing. So, for the most part, people are supporting you and they want it to go well. And there is going to be something that goes wrong, but when it does, just get ahead of it. And how big of that issue was it? That's all. So
yeah, at the end of the day, when I take a step back and I look at it and I get out of my own head, I'm like, oh wait, hey, this actually isn't that big of a deal. Why am I losing sleep right now?
So many of the times too, things that happen behind the scenes, especially when it comes to like an event world, people don't even realize till after. Like, it's funny how much things you worry about and probably stress about, and same thing in your world, until you look at take a step back, like 99% of people didn't even know that even happened because they were dealing with it behind the scenes, right? So, yeah.
Exactly. Now, how good does it feel? You just mentioned, people work 9 to 5 all the time. They're stressed out and overworked, and in order to get a bit of relaxation and to spend their free time, like they choose to spend their free time with, yourself in a way.
Yeah, it feels great. We super appreciate that. I mean, we try and go above and beyond. And I mean, the thing about my company too is, like, when I first started 9 years ago, not really realizing it, but like my name is in the company. It's Brent Mac Event. I'm not hiding behind anything, right? It's not like it's something entertainment or this or that. Like, I'm very much the face of the company, right? So there's that element as well. I'm not going to put something out there that I know is not a good product because it's my face. So like, I just don't want to have a bad face.
I'm curious with that decision. because some people in business, they have like there's a little bit of a debate, tying your name or like any personal branding to say like a the big kind of company in a sense. Like I remember when I was like starting up Greels Reels, somebody
Yeah.
was just like, hey, kind of take your nickname out of it, because you know, if you somehow disassociate from that, it's always kind of be there in a way. I've always just been like, no, like this is like the whole premise of the show is chatting with people who I've worked with in sport. Like,
And you're the host of it, so like,
yeah.
yeah,
So it's just
yeah.
like, I think that might be a big thing. So I'm curious, was there anything like that in terms of like your decision where, Brent Mac Events?
It came out of simplicity because again, when I first started with Patty Green and Matt Power, on my second event, uh Patty kind of told me, he said, "Hey, you need a name." And I said, I don't know, like what is it? What is it? He goes, "It can be anything." He's like, Brent Mac, because like that's like, oh yeah, my full name is McNamara. It's a bit longer, but more of a mouthful. So I said, yeah, sure, Brent Mac Events. And I was like, simple enough, let's do it. And then it sort of just stuck. Yeah, but on your other point about removing yourself from it, like at the end of the day, like any good business really needs to be able to stand on its own two legs, right? So the main three events I do: Jib Fest Weekender, Best Kind Barbecue, and Best Kind Comedy Tour. So like pretty much trying to get all those to a point now where I can not be there and they can still run. Obviously I'm still a main part of a lot of them, but that's sort of the goal, is to have yourself that zone entity, right? So yeah.
What do you think needs to happen for that goal to be met?
I think we're getting there. I mean, this was the first year actually I didn't attend the Best Con Barbecue because it was obviously very scaled down this year, everything going on, but it was down at Murray's Beach. Great venue, great day for it. We had sold out immediately. It was supposed to be the weekend before. Last minute, huge rainfall coming in place. So we pretty much contacted all the ticket holders and said, we're looking at moving to the next weekend. And we're like, yeah, no problem. So we did. The problem was I was already booked to go see my niece who lives on the west coast of Canada. And I just said, like, I'm not, she's only a year and a half old. And I said, I really want to go see her and the family for a couple of days. And I talked to my partner and my work term student. They're like, we got everything under control here. Like it can really be fine without you. But in the 10 years I've been doing events, I've never missed one. So it was just that. But once everyone was like, all the ticket holders were fine, the venue was fine, my partners were cool to handle the event, I'm like, yeah, I can still do this. Why not? And sure enough, I come back, everyone's like, "Oh, it was the best event ever." I was like, "Wow, okay, maybe I should just miss more of my own events. You guys are having better time without me." But yeah, no, it's that, like, it's the first time you're leaving your baby with a babysitter or something. First time you're going out on your own, right? So it's cool.
Were
Yeah.
you able to relax at all being away while the event was going on?
It's funny. We were getting family photos that day, and my phone kept going off, and I was just like, you know what? Like, I can't do anything about this. Like, the guys were at sound check, and something was coming up, and I said, talk to our production manager, Carter. He knows us better. If I was there, I'd just go to him anyway. So just go to him right now. I can't do anything about it. So, and there was only something minor. I'll get fixed, and yeah, it was good. It was like late in the afternoon. I didn't hear from anyone. I was like panicking. And they're like, "No, we're just having a good time. That's why I'm not going to call you because it's good." I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. Okay, so no news is good news, right? Sometimes." So yeah.
Oh, for sure. Now, in terms of those events, what have been some of your favorite things, individually pulling off? Like, what were some moments where, like, if you were almost to put together a top 5 per se, I mean, you don't really have to go with a list or anything, but stuff that really reigns fluid with you.
Sure. All right. Well, maybe most recently, working back, last year, our 10-year anniversary for Jib Fest X, we did an outdoor concert, about 1,000 people, base Marble Mountain. Sammy Adams was headliner, and but also this group Ski Tour and Famba. And the amount of work that got put into that for like over a year, a couple months leading up to it, the 2 days leading up to it, we had a crew of 30 people out there that we were basically hired. We had them put up in chalets. We were cooking food for them. We were just, it was a big production. I didn't even realize until I got out there, like, wow, all these people are working for us this weekend. It was a lot. And like, we had some super high winds and we had issues with the fencing. But again, none of that stuff that the people saw. Like, once the event started, it was amazing. And I remember looking back on that and like, we just, one of those things we dreamt up a year ago. Like that, a year before that, we were out there measuring the area off and getting our site map drawn up, and to see that kind of come to life was unreal. So that was one of them for sure. And probably one more I'd mention is the Best Kind Comedy Tour. So that's with Mike Lynch, Brian Elward, and Colin Hollett. We've done 2 tours right across the country, around 30 shows each year, 14,000 kilometers, just drive right across, and just seeing those guys like night after night, like just road warriors. That's been a super cool experience, getting to see the country as well and going new places.
Take me through a road trip with all your.
Hilarious. We're always having a great time, but everyone kind of assumes, oh, it must be 24/7 party, having fun. It is. We have a great time, but also it's work. Like, the guys work so hard. Like, I gotta drive 8 hours. I drive. They got their headphones in. They're writing. Like, they're every day. They're tweaking stuff. Oh, we're in front of this audience tonight. Okay, I gotta change up my references. Or I didn't like the way that joke hit last night. I'm changing it. Or that was hilarious. I'm gonna write a bit on this. And like, the amount of work they put in, it's amazing. Like, they're 3 really good friends of mine, and like, just we vibe really, really well together, because we all, like, we can have fun, and we also work hard, and we're having fun again. It's just like, when you're with someone 24/7 for 2 months, you can kind of get under each other's skin. But for the most part, like, we got along really, really well, and just respected one another, and we all worked really hard. So I can't wait. I really missed the road. We had a full tour of Ireland booked this year. We had a bunch of come home years all across Newfoundland. So when we can get back on the road, we're excited.
Now, because you manage Mike Lynch, correct?
Yeah.
So how are you balancing, friendship and business there?
I mean, we've kind of been working together for a couple of years now through the tour and just doing shows. So it's only really last, I guess, couple months before this tour, we sort of like, okay, might as well just make this a thing. It's like you're dating someone for a long time. You're like, okay, what are we, right? That's kind of like, we had the conversation, but it's just about being honest with one another. I'm giving you like dating advice, basically. It's just like being honest with one another, being open and honest, and having trust, communication, all the things, really. Yeah, 100%.
So now, how did that kind of first start, that was going to be something almost in your arsenal with your business, right?
That was really cool. So Mike, I just known, just being buddies over the years and doing some like one-off comedy shows. Colin Hollett, him and I, again, were friends. We also used to run a comedy room together at the Fifth Ticket for 2 years. So it was called That Time of the Month. It was the last Saturday of every month for 2 years. We used to fly comics down every month. And it was a really cool venue, 50 seats. We do 2 shows every night, like really, really cool. So we got to meet a lot of comics throughout the country. He knew a lot of people from being a touring comic himself. So he kind of took the lead on the bookings. Then we worked together to produce it and promote it, and he hosted every show. It was awesome. And then eventually they changed hands, the owners, and the show stopped. That's how I met Colin and got close with Colin. Brian, I had just met at one of the open mics. I was down just watching it. I thought, man, this guy's hilarious. I messaged him after the show. I said, you want to come out to Jib Fest? He said, I'd love to. So he came out to Jib Fest in 2015, maybe 2016. And he headlined that year. I got to know him after that. And up to that point, the 3 of them had kind of been doing some Newfoundland shows together. Mike was living out west for a bit, and they did some shows in Alberta. So they called me up one day, I guess 3 years ago now. It was after Jib Fest. I was on the way to go somewhere, taking a couple of days off. And basically, 3 of them called me and said, we want to, basically, we've been touring Newfoundland, it's been going well. We've been touring Alberta, it's been going well. We want to connect the dots, do a whole tour. We need some help. We need a producer. We need manager. We need some help. So I said, I'd love to. So I basically took on the role of an agent, manager, and producer, right? So together we came up with the name Best Con Comedy Tour. And then from there, I just got on the phones, got on the emails, and just started booking shows for them. So, and the majority of those shows, if not all of them, were all self-produced. So, it's not like a typical agent role. You're going to a venue or a promoter, you're selling the show, you're booking it, you're figuring it out. Like we were taking all the risk on ourselves, So, but that was really cool. And just, yeah. So, I mean, that's how I first got in with those guys. And then again, the first year was really much so just figuring out. We went right across the country, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. Obviously, they were all right. They weren't as good. But then the following year, we said, okay, you only have so much time. How do we maximize this? Drew to Ontario, added more Ontario dates because there's just better markets there. And then we flew from Toronto to Calgary. And that way we were able to get there quicker, and we added more Alberta dates. So, it was like anything, it's just finding out what makes most sense, right? So, yeah, that's how that came to be.
Now, when you're managing other people, obviously you have your own roles and responsibilities. And like you said, you got to call these venues and book the shows. But primarily, you're also very dependent on how these individuals perform, what they say and do. And how, audiences resonate with them after the shows and stuff like that. So there is a lot of the weight, I would say, in terms of like that portion of your company where you're dependent on these individuals performing well. How are you managing that?
100%. I mean, that's something we kind of said to ourselves through the comedy tour. We said, guys, there's four of us. So what we all say and do is, reflects how we all get perceived, right? So again, it's no different than like a band almost. If you have a drummer in a band who says something ridiculous and offensive, then it's so and so of the band. You're attached to one another, right? So you got to kind of look out for each other, and and there's been a couple things over the years where we're like, okay, how do we deal with this? How do we deal with that? And especially with comedy, by nature, comedy, it's like so subjective, right? Some people might find it hilarious, some people don't, and that's just perception, right? So I mean, but yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, I think the answer to your question is, you got to look out for one another because you are, working for the same team. So.
And now, what are you doing to make sure that you really execute and you land specific venues? Like, what are some strategies that you kind of like to use to make sure that you're doing the management side to the best of your ability?
For example, one of the venues in Ontario a couple of years ago didn't want to, didn't quite, wasn't that familiar with the show, and fair enough, we were a bit earlier on and just didn't know how well it would sell, and didn't want to sell it for the price we're selling the other shows at, and we kind of just held firm. And maybe I had to do a different deal with that venue, but it was just maybe use past sales to, we sold the show 2 hours away from you, 200 tickets sold out, so we should be able to do the same in your market, that kind of thing. Use one to help promote the other. So and that's sort of the same thing. I just booked Mike's show, and that was sort of the same thing. Coming to a couple new markets, and like, we have 12 sold out shows in Newfoundland, so we should be able to add one more to your market, and sort of use that to. My background always came from a promoter, right? So I spent the first 6-7 years just booking shows and booking shows, so I know exactly what it's like to be on the other side of it. So I kind of put myself in their shoes and would pitch to them that way. And a lot of times when we come in and we're booking the venue and we're producing their shows, there's not really a lot of risks to the venue, because it's not like they're paying a big flat fee up front and they got to sell the tickets. It's really on us. So we take a lot more risk on, but it takes the risk off of the venue. So a lot more inclined to work with us when there's no risk for them.
Mm-hmm. And now, when you travel and you go away, I'm curious because, especially for Mike and his routine with like Cecil O'Brien and you guys being called like the Best Kind comedy tour, it's very relative to Newfoundland and Newfoundlanders. When you go away, is your audience demographic primarily, people who have a connection to Newfoundland in some way? Is that something you've been able to gauge?
It is, yeah. So well, first off, with the comedy tour as well, it's just stand up. So Mike doesn't do his Cecil character. Mike's kind of we've sort of built a nice thing with Mike over the last couple of years, where it's he has these getting to know me shows where it's his characters and his stand up and a bit more sketch involved, and that's sort of in the winter. And then in the fall, we'll do the Best Kind comedy tour. So 3 of them sort of co-headline, do about 25-30 minutes each. But yeah, I guess, yeah, back to your question, the audience primarily is Newfoundlanders or some sort of connection to Newfoundlanders, So, and again, that goes back to what I mentioned a minute ago about why we chose folks on Ontario and Alberta. Again, more Newfoundlanders in those markets, right? And once we've done the tour a couple of times too, we start to see other markets that they're contacting us. Hey, you should bring your tour here. So, yeah, it's definitely Newfoundland based, but they're cognizant of the audience and references outside of the island. So.
Now, with events like Best Kind Barbecue, where food's involved and things of that nature, how are you preparing for that? Like, what's some of your favorite things in terms of maybe getting a menu prepared or things of that nature? Is that something that, you might outsource with like maybe culinary experts or?
100%. I mean, I started off doing events years ago, not to jump all over the place. So I started doing this I kind of thought one day, I was like, I don't really have skills. Like, I remember thinking to myself, I'm kind of laughing. Like some people are really good with their hands, they're carpenters or electricians. They can do things. Like I'm just like, I don't have any skill. I thought about that one day and just laughed. But I know people with skills. So I just connected the skills. That's what I did. So when we do the barbecue now, I just put the best musicians together. I find the best chefs, and then you just connect it. That's our job, right? So I don't, in terms of the menu, I say, what do you want to do? And they'll tell me something. I said, that sounds great. Let's do that. I don't really, yeah, it's just, I let people do what they do, really.
It's funny because I mean there are very much I'm seeing and hearing just more and more similarities with us, right? Because some people are just like, oh, like how did I do? Like how did I sound in this interview? And I'm like, hey, at the end of the day, I know nothing. I'm just good at more or less asking questions, and you're the expert in this field.
Just let people do what they do. I mean, you try and do everything at the beginning, and you're like, you got to have faith in people and just let them do what they do, right? So, yeah.
What's been some real breathtaking moments? I know on your Instagram you have, a bunch of different photos in terms of like, the differences, right? Like I love the one where it's just like how it started versus how it's going, right? And it's the three you
Yeah,
guys. Let's kind of dive into that one there.
that's funny. I'll bring that up. That's funny you mentioned. I found that the other day. It came up on Facebook Memories. Like, oh, this is great. That was in high school at a friend's. She rented out like a hall. It was a hall down Stare of the Sea. You see behind it, Stare of the Sea. So yeah, that was just probably like an iPod plugged into an old ass sound system with a little disco ball in front of it, and it was probably some Kanye playing. I can tell by the Kanye glasses. And I was just trying to get the crowd going. I guess hopped up and dancing on the table, So yeah, that's all that was, pure and simple. I mean, I don't think I didn't organize that event by any means. I was just up there just playing the iPod. Really, can't disrespect the DJ and call a DJ. You just had an iPod. Yeah.
What's it like, looking back at a moment like that and now seeing the stuff that you do now at this day and age?
It's cool. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, it's just I kind of think about the Shad story from a little while ago. It's just years ago when I first started it, sort of had this you had this vision where like, oh, I'd love to do that someday, and then you rely on other people to hopefully do it for you. But then I realized, okay, I want to see Shad. No one's going to do it for me. I got to bring him here, and that's sort of the way I just feel now. Like, you want it, you just got to go do it because other people aren't going to do it for you. So I'm like, I just think this would be a cool event. People would love this. Let's do it. No one else is going to do it, so we should do it.
What's the creative process like? I mean, how do you go from, more or less chalk on a whiteboard to a festival?
I annoy the shit out of my partners a lot. Call them, and then they're like, "Yeah, yeah, sleep on it." And then if it's still a good idea, a couple weeks later, and then a lot of behind the scenes too, just of getting the right people involved, the venues, if it's a town council, getting approval on things. There's a lot of just people you got to kind of get on your side. But I think we've done enough over the years that generally people know when we come to them that they know we mean business, and they know we've probably put our homework in and know it's kind of going to work. So yeah, it's just it's still a lot of figuring out, but now at least we know, like, if we wanted to do a new event this style in XYZ community, like we know people to call, and we would just be very honest. Like, hey, here's what we want to do. Here's when we want to do it. And they'd say yes, no, or maybe we got to check in this sort of thing, right? So it took a long time to get to this point, but it's we're in a pretty good position now where I think we have good relationships built with the decision makers. So
Now, tell me about navigating and creating events during like, the last calendar year with the pandemic and COVID-19.
yeah, it's um like we had a full tour booked, 15 shows from Mike. It was good. I mean, all the venues are just reduced. I mean, once we kind of figured out what the rules were going to be, and then that's the other thing as well. Some people don't realize, like, how are you doing this or how are you doing that? But it's like, it's actually easy when you think about it. The government comes out and says, okay, venues can have 100 people or half capacity, depending on how they're zoned. Are they event space or are they a restaurant? Okay, cool. What type of venue are you? Okay, cool. What is your capacity? What's your restrictions? All right, let's do that. Like, it wasn't really on us to figure out. The rules are kind of given to us. Like, there's no question on the rules are the rules. Like, you can't. There's no flexibility in the way it should be. So all right, fine. Even like the Yellow Belly shows we just did, instead of normally we probably would have more people in there and we just do rows of seating. This time around it was all done on tables, so you can make sure they're spaced out and there's different size tables, all that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, it actually it sucked. Obviously, we got a lot of reduced numbers, but it was fairly. There was no guessing. It was just like, here are the rules, do it. So it actually wasn't too bad.
Now, when capacity gets cut, are you trying to maybe integrate, I guess, different potential revenue streams to not take as big of a hit?
Um, yes and no. I mean, some things, a lot of music events. I know doing a lot of live streaming, it's easier to integrate that. Um, the hard part about with comedy, it's like you can't live stream that because I mean it's one show and you tour it. So like if that was to get released the first show, then it's out there. Then you can't really do it live anymore. So that's why it's a little you're at a bit of a disadvantage with comedy. So I mean there wasn't really that live stream integration, but no, I mean we just did a bit more of a premium ticket because I mean it was normally like Mike's shows. We've always done 3 shows at Holy Heart Theater. So like normally you'd see them in a huge theater, but now you get to see them in small venues. So I mean right off the hop, it was a pretty intimate show. So it was just cool to be able to offer that to people. An intimate show. Right.
What's been the response from just the fans? I mean, I'm sure in a way the ones who are lucky enough to get a ticket almost maybe prefer it because now they have a more intimate relationship and evening with a guy like Mike.
100%. I mean, that's kind of like at first it sucked. Like last year when it happened, and then we did nothing all for 6, 7 months, and then we announced the barbecue again. It was scaled down 80%, but sold out right away. Put Jib Fest on sale, sells out right away. Mike Lynch sold out right away because like they're a lot smaller numbers, but people are just excited to go. Like my girlfriend Julie the other night, she said, "Hey, do you want to?" And I said, "Yes." She I didn't finish. Like it doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do, I'll do it. Like, do you want to go? Yes. Drive in the car? Absolutely. Go check the mail? Can't wait. Like people want to do anything. So right now.
Yeah, they're just stuck in the house. What paint a picture? COVID-19 no longer exists. What kind of event is Brent Mac Events throwing?
Oh man. I really want to get back to the way Jib Fest was last year, outdoors. We have a lot of ideas for that. Last year was a big learning curve on our end, like all the bullshit behind the scenes stuff. That's kind of more or less figured out now, and I know how to do it bigger and better. So definitely going to get back to that. Hit the road again with the guys right across the country. I mean, we got a lot of places we want to get back to. Yes, I mean, we're definitely a big cross country comedy tour. Another barbecue for sure. We had a great venue, St. David's Field in Mount Pearl. They were really, really good to us. Can't wait to get back there. And I mean, just gonna keep doing what we do. Really, just those 3 projects, build them up. It's kind of the immediate plan. Some other things maybe down the road, but the immediate plan is those bigger and better 3 events.
Now, I'm curious when you mentioned how you just find experts for different expertise that you might
Yeah,
not be a pronounced profession. In the same way, you still like to have a decent amount of knowledge, similar to how, I kind of like to go into this interview with some form of information in terms of like what you do and, really organizing events and stuff like that. And I do have a little bit of work experience in it. So I'm curious what you do to try and learn in terms of maybe the research and different avenues. So sometimes, you still trust the expert, but at least you can, give yourself peace of mind to, let them take control in certain decisions because you have some form of education or knowledge.
100%. I mean, it's just having. I know enough to have the conversation about it. Like my partner on Jib Fest, he handles all our production, and then we had to do the bigger outdoor event. He's hiring a proper production manager. I can have a conversation with them and know why are we setting these lights up, why are we setting these speakers up, this, that, and everything else. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty, I just let them deal with it. We can have a quick talk. Cool. Yeah, this works here. This works here. Yeah, great. Awesome. Same thing with, with your cooks, the barbecue, you're going to let them do what they do and everything really. Yeah. I'll have a conversation. I generally know what's going on, but when it comes down to the real details, it's everyone kind of has their own role. Right.
So now, year after year, as you get older, do you see your events maybe switching based off of tailored of your age? I mean, right now, a lot of festivals and things like that, but say fast forward to when you're in your 40s or maybe even 50s, like, do you see still kind of festivals, or do you think maybe something would probably pertain more to what you're currently interested in?
I think, I mean, like I said, it's funny enough, when I started doing this, I was 19. The biggest party we did at the time was a Jersey Shore theme party because at that time in the summer, everyone was Jersey Shore, let's go. And you kind of look back on it and laugh. But at the time, it was just like, it was a product of our environment, it's what we were. But even, I kind of just like, I feel like things will just work itself out. Like I wouldn't have thought 5 years ago I'd have the best kind of comedy tour and that'd be such a big part of my life. And that's what's cool about comedy. It's you go to a show and there's grandparents there, then there's people there that are 20 on on a first date, maybe. It's the audience is so wide with comedy shows. I really like that. I think that's gonna be a big part of my future moving forward. But other than that, like where you're gonna be in 3, 5, 10 years, like who knows? Just keep doing what feels right and the rest of the shit will figure itself out, really.
What's your best knock knock joke?
Oh shit. Oh damn, cut me off guard with that one. I don't know. My roommate always grills me too. He's like, man, you got some bad jokes. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. What's yours?
Hey, listen, I just asked the questions here. I don't answer them.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
No, it's do you think you'll like get on stage more so as things go on, or is that just not interest you whatsoever?
Like me personally?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I got no interest. Well, it's funny. I do like when I do the comedy tours. I do get up and just open the show and welcome Colin on, but it's not like I don't do any material. I'm not like a comedian or anything. I just get up there just so he isn't gonna walk on cold, any housekeeping things, that kind of thing, just get people into the show. So I definitely got more comfortable in front of a crowd. There's nothing for me to get in front of 200 people now and just welcome them. I kind of enjoy that, honestly. But no, there's no real performer there, and or scatter time. You might see some videos of down at club shows or whatever, just throwing out t-shirts. I love, again, I joke around with my friends doing that. Can we throw some shirts out again? That's a fun time. But yeah, no, that's about it.
No, yeah, I mean it makes sense. Now, in terms of, just more or less moving forward and different things that like maybe virtual, or I know, your last Instagram was something with Volt Fuse and stuff like that. Is like, tell me more about like everything else that's kind of going on currently.
Yeah, well, we just put out, so we did these, I'll get one for you. I'll send them up your way. We did these tubes, like they're kind of like, just, you probably see people wear them now over the face. Like I was wearing like headbands and stuff. So we did those back in the fall through Gym Fest this year. So now we're just like a little bit of merch we got on hand. We just put that out the other day, and just to try and get it out there, a few hats and stuff. So that's kind of what we're focused on right now over the next week or two, just selling off that little bit of merch we had, and then really just do a bit of housekeeping internally, just clean things up and see where we're at the summer. We definitely planning on doing another barbecue this summer. Hopefully things ease up a little bit. We can do it to at least the level it was last year. But yeah, we're just waiting like everyone else. We're just waiting, just getting ready and waiting.
Reflecting on some inspiration to maybe some of your events, did you go to things like Salmon Fest when you were younger, or
Oh, big time. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of a funny thing. I've always, I guess, was, even looking back on it, someone who did do a bit of organizing, get things ready to go. Like in grade 10, I went to Salmon Fest for the first time with a few guys in our school. In grade 12, went on the bus with them, and it was so much fun. And then the following year, like, we're not doing it anymore. I was like, okay, I got to take this over. So I got the bus contact. I got more of our friends on the go. We all met there on Thompson Road, and then kind of went. And for 2 or 3 years, I organized that, and it grew into a pretty big, like, oh, Brent got the bus on the go. We're going to Salmon Fest. Like for 5 years at least, probably, we were doing the Salmon Fest trips, and they were amazing. And then that's sort of like, I think the last year we did Salmon Fest was the first year we did Random Sound. So I incorporated, like, we brought out a bunch of flyers and stuff like that, and we're like just putting them all over Red Cliff, doing that sort of thing. So yeah, I guess I always did kind of like have a bit of organization and a bit of drive in me. At least when it comes to having a good time or something.
It's funny when you start like looking back on it all, right? I mean,
Yeah.
when it's funny because even for myself, like I have memories of like being in third grade where like, oh, okay, yeah, like I was writing these stories with like these little superheroes and stuff like that. So it kind of makes sense that I'm, in a way, still very much a storyteller. Now,
Yeah.
every now and then with these shows, I always try and like integrate, because Newfoundland, it's so small, some of the mutuals. So people who, because I mean, we've really only met through John, connecting us. So I'm curious, anybody around my age that in Claremont, from Claremont?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, who would? I don't know. Do you got? Let me look a name up here. Who are you thinking? Like, anyone you think might out your way?
Well, I'm looking at some of our mutuals, and I know, like I grew up with Sydney Wells.
Okay.
Kelsey Stanley, Laura Chater.
Yeah, so Kelsey worked for me a couple years ago. Yeah. No, last summer. So 18 months ago. She's awesome. Yeah.
All right, fair
Cool.
enough. Yeah, so I graduated with her.
Cool. Small world.
Yeah,
Yeah, she did a work term with me, and that was a lot of fun. She was really good.
that was actually something I wanted to touch on too. How have you gone with like, managing and navigating work term students? Because, in a way that's also very different from managing employees.
It is, yeah. It's different for sure. I mean, I've had good. I mean, they've all been good students for sure, but different people with different strengths that have worked different ways with me. Um, but yeah, it's like anything else. I mean, 'cause when I first hired my first work term student, that was my first time ever hiring someone, right? Like I just had to pay, like their pay was based on me. Like I had to pay, like that was crazy to me, because I didn't think I'd ever be in a position where I could afford to hire someone, but there is some funding available that the university offers to help subsidize it for small employers. So that once I started looking at that and the workload I had, I was like, I can't really afford not to hire someone. So it's been good. It's funny. I remember my first work term student called me up and he's like, "Hey, yeah, my dad told me I went to Texas, and like, when you send those T4s out, we should have those soon." I'm like, "Yeah, it's so weird you don't got yours yet. I'll check on it." Like out the phone, I was like, "How to send out T4?" I forgot I even had to do that as an employer. I was like, "Oh right, I should do that." But you just all those things you just learn, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, it was tough to get going, but now it's a pretty good groove going, right? You just kind of get the dates ahead of you, make sure you're on time, get your job applications in, get your all your remittances and all that stuff, But it's good.
All the fun stuff of a learning process.
Yeah, exactly.
I noticed one thing too. So I follow him on Instagram. His Instagram handle is Osgod. I think he follows you. Do you have like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Nelk videographer? So is there a connection there?
man. So that's a really cool story. So Austin, um, Alex, actually East Coast Lifestyle. I met
Yeah.
Alex years ago in Halifax when we were both kind of starting. He's done incredible things. I mean, like if you get him on your podcast, he's an incredible guy. So Austin was working for him. Austin's from Ontario. I was working for him doing some video work. And years ago, I had them both down to my house when Alex was like doing a little bit of like hosting and stuff like that. So did like an East Coast Lifestyle takeover down at dusk. So Alex was there like hosting the event and did a bunch of East Coast Lifestyle giveaways. And Austin just filmed it and had this unreal edit. Like I knew he was like his editing is just insane, right? And then through that, he had linked up with the Nelk boys doing some videos with them. And then when they were in Toronto one time, just absolute coincidence, I was up there as well with my girlfriend at the time. She's visiting some friends, and a friend wrote me and they're like, "Are you bringing the Nelk boys to Newfoundland?" I said, "No." Like, what do you mean? They're like, "Go look at their Instagram story." And I looked at it and I was like, Newfoundland for like June something to something, like a week long period to film. So I got in touch with Austin, who got me in touch with Kyle. And he was just like, "Yeah, we're going in there just randomly to film, just to get out of Toronto for a bit because they're getting too big. They couldn't really film in Toronto." And again, coincidentally enough, I was like, "When do you go back to Newfoundland?" He's like, "Tonight, 8 o'clock." I was like, "Dude, I'm on your flight." So I went and just met him at the airport. We talked about it a little bit. I remember they landed, they had like 50 kids there, like just screaming and getting photos with them. It was nuts. And that I think that's the moment they had too. And they're kind of like, "Wow, we're on something here. We're in Newfoundland. Like, why do we have, I don't know, we had fans out here." And we did like a last minute like Nelk takeover, Nelk party down at dusk. That was awesome. But yeah, so I mean again, I kind of forget what the initial question was, but like my relationship to them or how I met them and stuff. So
Yeah, more or less. I was
yeah,
curious how you end up meeting Austin.
yeah. So I met him through Alex. And yeah, he's really cool. And again, like he was living in Halifax for a bit. Like so when we came through on the comedy tour, like he came out to the shows and stuff. So he's a really really good dude, super talented, obviously.
I've heard him speak on podcasts because obviously I love his video work and that's somebody that I look for,
Yeah.
in terms of inspiration because he is so talented. And I've remembered him saying like East Coast lifestyle, and I know you kind of got a connection there. So I was like, I feel like that's the thing. I didn't realize Nelk was in Newfoundland before.
Dude, it was crazy. It was honestly like right before they took off. Like it was, man, oh man, like it was within days. Like I was supposed to do some work with them, helping them out with some bookings behind the scenes, and we were both kind of so busy. We were playing phone tag for like a week because it was right when I was starting the comedy tour as well. So we were flat out with that, and then it seemed like overnight. All of a sudden, next week they're like playing beer pong and Post Malone. I'm like, okay, they got it figured out. I think they're doing okay now, and it's just nuts, like what they've grown that into. It's insane.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I will say I find some of the decisions may be questionable, that they're
It,
doing, but that
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's a different thing now than when it started. I mean, there's no question about that. But it's just gotten so big. It's almost like I don't know. I can't really talk on it anymore. It's just like from what like from meeting those two guys at my house, and then from what it is now, where they have like 40 employees, like it's crazy. You can't even compare the two in a way. So
Well,
It's real
full
different.
send has turned into like a culture standpoint. Like
100%. Well, Jesse came out with some of those shows. Let me sign those behind the scenes where he starts talking about like how he sort of transitioned away from Nelk and he's just working on like the clothing aspect of it now, building that brand up, and like he quit drinking and stuff like that, or at least stopped for the last 5 or 6 months. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, when I met those guys, man, they're super nice, like they're really good dudes, and wish all the best for them, man. They clearly built a massive company up. So
Well, it's funny too because you mentioned East Coast lifestyle and the guy who runs that,
Alex, yeah.
Alex. So, man, I have no idea how. And you mentioned how he'd be a good one for the podcast, and I'm sure I genuinely I have no idea how like factual this story is, but I went downtown Halifax one year for a part of a college thing more or less, and it was an after party.
Yeah.
But when I was there, this guy told me, I can barely vaguely remember it, but I think in the sense it was Alex from like East Coast lifestyle. And
Okay.
anyways, I just more or less partied with him for the evening, and he was
Nice.
like telling me a few stories, but dude, I'm not even sure if this guy was actually Alex, and I can't remember. I can't pinpoint I can't. It's been so long now where I can't pinpoint the face or anything, and I can't be like,
Yeah.
that was definitely that guy. But I mean, I would almost need to sit down and talk to him, and we would need to look at the specific dates and see if he was in the same place at the same time. But that whole night was just so. I went to like it was supposed to be like an after party, and like I think I went to the wrong bar from like what the college had organized, and I thought I was there. It started off with, dude, it was like a biker gang's birthday party.
Okay, yeah.
And it was just I showed up and I was just like, they were the only people there at the bar at the time, and I was like, oh, like what university are you guys from? And they're like, what? Like university? We didn't go to university. And then I'm like, oh yeah, this is a biker gang. And they're like, we're here for Tom's birthday. Are you here for Tom's birthday? And I was like, yeah, man, sure, I'm here for Tom's birthday. And then I kind of separated myself from that at one point in the night, and then I met the individual who said he was Alex from East Coast Lifestyle. I can't remember if that was actually him or not, but it was, man, just such a very confusing night. And I'm not even saying I was like, I'm trying to defend myself here. I wasn't even intoxicated or anything like that. It was just like
just one of those nights. Yeah.
One of those where it's like, man, what is going on right now? Like,
oh man, that's yeah, that's been there, man. Been there. I'm trying to look up her name. Oh yeah, fun. Yeah, that's funny, man. It might have been him or could have been an imposter. Who knows?
oh,
Yeah.
well, that's the thing too, right? I mean, so many people wear his clothing and whatnot too, right? And some people, yeah, man, there's so many people who are, sometimes they just look like him, and they'll say, it was funny. I seen like a clip because Omegle videos have been a big trend nowadays, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was a clip from Bryce Hall, like the big TikToker, and he got his friends to get on Omegle and ask people, hey, like, what do you think of him? Just more or less to be like, oh, that guy's an ass. And then he come out and be on screen and be like, oh, I'm an ass, am I?
The guys did that with Takeshi was 6ix9ine or whatever. The Nelk Boys did that one with him. You see
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
And one of the people that they were on Omegle with, he was just like, yeah, no, Bryce Hall's my cousin. He came out and he was like, I don't think you're my cousin. I've never seen you before. And he's just like, oh my God.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, I've seen that. That's a good little prank or whatever. I've seen a few of those. That's dope.
What do you think? Do you think there'll be any virtual events like that? Omegle, Brent Mac Events presents Omegle with Mike Lynch.
Yeah. Mike actually did that. Like, I don't know if he did that before that trend got on, but he did something like that a couple of years ago when he was just starting. Like to kind of fuck with people. Like you go up in like Toronto somewhere, like, do you know Mike Lynch? They're like, no. And he's like, what if I told you were talking to him right now? And take off his costume, and they're just like, what's going on right now? And he's like, that's right. And like, oh, it's fucking gold. Like, yeah.
Oh no, that's awesome.
That's a good one. Yeah.
This has been pretty much everything that I've had for you and more. I mean, It's nice to see like a lot of what you're doing, and a lot of the events and the comedy. It's not easy work, so I definitely applaud you for how you've grown it over the years.
No, I do appreciate it, man. It's been super fun chatting with you as well. I really appreciate that. It's been nice talking with you. And yeah, no, it's good podcast you're doing too. Like I said, I watched the one there with John a while ago with Bud and stuff, and you had some good guests on. So yeah, it's entertaining, man. Good on you as well.
Hey, no, I appreciate it. I mean, it was something where I just kind of was like, hey, like let's do it. It was nice to kind of have a full year of Greels Reels under the belt and be
Yeah,
like, get those early stages out of the way. I mean,
yeah.
it, I always cringe a little that like my earliest episodes are still some of the most popular because I'm like, oh, I could have done this so much better. But at the end of the day, half the people listening don't even pick up on what I'm critiquing myself with.
100% right. Like little audio edits or whatever. Like I should tweak that. People aren't going to notice the majority of that, and especially with a podcast, just consistency. Like just stick with it. Like it's not gonna keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. Yeah, just keep cranking it out.
For sure. Any parting advice? What's for people who are looking to kind of get in the thing, or anything you want to plug? I mean, obviously you're in the event business and whatnot.
Yeah, Fest 2022 is going to be a year. Yeah, early birds on sale tomorrow. No, man, just I don't want to say something super cliche or nothing, but man, we just started it. Like we just started doing things. Like I don't know, because other people weren't doing them, so we wanted to do it. So just get out there and get it. Go get it.
Awesome. I love it. Hey man,
Yeah,
I appreciate you coming on the SY podcast, and yeah, take care. Well, I'm sure I'll be chatting with you.
absolutely. Man. Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, that's it for this week. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Please leave us a review, share this with a friend. It helps get these episodes out to more people. And obviously, we love doing these and we want to keep doing them for you. This has been the Yes By Podcast, Newfoundland's #1 podcast. I'm your host, Robert Greeley. See you next week.